So to me, the core of good leader is the belief that every single one of us is a leader and could be a leader and actually could be a better leader.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mid-America PTTC podcast. I'm your host, Dave Clausen, and I'm the director of the Mid-America Prevention Technology Transfer Center. Dr. David Anderson, Professor Emeritus of Education and Human Development at George Mason University, is our guest for this episode. At Mason, he served as professor and director of the Center for the Advancement of Public Health. He acquired over 180 grants and contracts, along with teaching courses on drug and alcohol issues, health communication, and community health. His professional work on drug and alcohol misuse, prevention, and wellness promotion spans over 4 decades. His specialties include strategic planning, program development, needs assessment and evaluation, along with health communication. His research, writing, and training emphasize leadership skills, grounded and practical strategies and healthy environments to maximize organizational, group, and individual potential. We're also excited to be hosting him for our event on September 26th, titled Creating Change, Empowering the Leader Within. And for those listening, we would love to have you. You can find out more information about that event and register for the free training on our website. But before we get into the content today, we'd like to thank our funder, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And a quick note, although funded by SAMHSA, the content of this recording does not necessarily reflect the views of SAMHSA. Without further ado, let's get into the episode. All right, I'd like to welcome David Anderson to the podcast. Thanks for coming back and joining us.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. We're always thrilled to have you. And for folks that haven't listened to the other episodes that you were on, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your background for the audience?
Yeah, my background is primarily with college students and young adults, high school students also, but my professional full-time job as a college administrator for a dozen years, and then as a full-time faculty member researcher for nearly 30 years. While I left formal work in that regard, I'm still very active and producing. I've actually had 3 books published in my 3.5 years since leaving George Mason University, where I retired as a professor emeritus. I've been involved with campuses, communities, state coalitions, state leaders, national leaders, and over this basically 45 years of doing alcohol and drug abuse prevention.
Oh, such rich experience there. And I can only imagine all the lessons learned over the 45 years.
Well, there's a lot of lessons, but I'm still learning. It's like the more I learn, the more I realize there is to know and learn. And then our scientists in various walks of life. I mean, my research is mainly with college students and young adults and plan change and organization development and evaluation. But so we've learned a lot, but there's so much more to learn. And I'm excited to be here today and talking about a new topic, an old topic, but a new topic for the podcast series for you, which is leadership.
Yes, indeed. And for those folks listening, we do have 2 other episodes with David talking about planned change and the pyramid of success. But these 3 podcast episodes all lead up to our September 26th event, Creating Change, Empowering the Leader Within, where David will also be a speaker. But we're going to be talking leadership. So let's get right into it. What is meant by a good leader? What does that mean to you?
Yeah. So to me, the core of good leader is the belief that every single one of us is a leader and could be a leader and actually could be a better leader. So it's not just those who are in an elected or appointed position. That's what we typically think of. Oh, I'm glad so-and-so is the leader. Great, that is true. But the point is every single one of us has points of view, has expertise, has interests, has passions. Every single one of us can be a leader. So when you think about leaders, consider a lot of the book titles that are out there. I went looking, I've done this for many years, but looking at, there's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. We know about that. How to Win Friends and Influence People. I mean, some of these are 20 or 30 years old. Some are more recent, authentic leadership. I mean, think of the words in these book titles. Visionary leadership. Leadership is an art. Servant leadership. The leadership who has no title, or who had no title. Leadership in turbulent times. Dare to lead. I mean, thinking fast and slow. Those are qualities. That's what it means to be a good leader. And just those titles help to suggest various views and various philosophies and various orientations about, and we'll talk about a little bit more about that, shortly. But I guess a core question when you read these different authors and scientists and former business people, is leadership something that you're born with, or can you develop it? Is it created? So the premise is that there's all sorts of different orientations, that everyone can be a leader, everyone can be better, even the people that we might name as leaders, whether natural leaders, seemingly natural, or in a position. Everyone can be better, and I'm pleased you made that call out to another podcast, something where I talked about the pyramid of success, which is competence, confidence, and commitment, and we need all of those. And those 3 elements are present with leaders, and each of those, the competence or the skills, the confidence, which is your belief in yourself, and your commitment, which is staying with it, even though you all and we all face obstacles. We keep with it. Working on all 3 of those helps make us better leaders. We're also stronger as leaders if we engage with planned change. That was another podcast. Being more planful about change. I was just at a advisory meeting, and they said, well, this group of 12 at a national level, we were talking about, what are a couple of words or a phrase that describes what you believe about alcohol and other drug abuse prevention? And I said, engaged planning. Engaged, which means people getting involved, and then planning, being more planful rather than just responding to a crisis. And then the last thought I would say is that we're more effective as leaders if we promote for our organization some guiding principles. If we as a group, whatever our organization, our community coalition, our state network, our national group, our more local group, maybe even in a faith community setting or in a school setting, if we promote some guiding principles, what is it that we stand for, whether it's outcomes or measures or processes? What is it that we say we stand for, and then periodically step back, take stock, and review and see how well we're doing with what we said we wanted to do. So bottom line, what's meant by a good leader, in my view, it's acknowledging the strengths that you have. It's acknowledging your particular areas of expertise. Don't be modest. Just, I'm a good communicator, or I'm good with the math and the budget, or I'm good with, even though I'm X years old, I'm good with talking with middle school youth or homeless youth or disenfranchised. But appreciate your strengths, and then also find ways that you can improve. So I think that the session, Dave, that you're sponsoring at the end of September is a great opportunity for people to spend a full day. You're bringing in 2 of us, and have the opportunity to spend a full day together and dive deeper on this, and finding ways that we can each improve at least a little notch as we move forward in our own lives and our own careers.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to that event. It's going to be a wonderful day, and I really do like how you highlighted, always learning and improving. And got to relate things back to the SPIF. Just like the SPIF, it's an ongoing process.
That's right.
It's a circle.
That's right.
It's not one destination. Just like leadership, it's an ongoing process. Now,
absolutely.
If you were to break down sort of the different types of leaders, what or how many would they be?
That's a hard one. I mean, it's not 10. It's not 10. It's not 100. As many. I think the simple answer is as many as there are people. Mm-hmm. That's a terrible way to say it. But there's no, some broad considerations. There's some types of leaders. There's some other skills. But let me just go through several things that kind of get at this formulation of infinity, if you will. Mm-hmm. I mentioned early on in this podcast, there's people who are designated as leaders. You're elected or you're appointed. You're the chairperson. You're the president. You're the coordinator. You're the designated leader. I've been in units, in my professional work where it's like a rotating leader. I served in my own community homeowners association as the president for 1 year. I was elected as the president for 1 year, and then it's another president for another year. 1 year term. Mm-hmm. At the same time, there's I've been in employment units where the chairperson, it might be a 3-year term, and it's like they rotated. It might be a staff of 10. It's like, okay, who's next? Who's going to be the next leader? So, and again, anyway, it can be designated / formal, or it can be informal. It may be, there's a group of 10 who's coordinating the regional coalition, the community coalition, the community effort, the state effort, and someone might have the title of the liaison or the coordinator or the leader, but everyone at the table has a voice. So you can be a leader just by speaking up on certain issues, or when certain things seem to be going well or awry, or you might be a leader in terms of managing time or managing processes. So there's formal and informal, elected or appointed, someone who speaks up or finds their niche, who's always speaking up to say, let's not forget the youth, or let's not forget the people who are over 80, or let's not forget when we're dealing with alcohol and other drugs, prescription drugs prescribed by a doctor are part of that package. I mean, let's not forget tobacco. Let's not forget marijuana, even though legalization issues are happening and decriminalization in various places. Also consider hard power and soft power, whether you have designated authority or just some soft power where you can say, I'm just going to have my voice. I don't respond right away. I always wait 20, someone's philosophy may be they always wait 24 hours to respond to something. So they're not, it's viewed as more thoughtful. So anyway, so that's just types of leaders. But I also think it's helpful to think about the types of skills that one has. Mm-hmm. There's facilitation skills, there's decision-making skills, whether it's deliberative or impulsive. There's skills that are helpful that my view for being a good leader is being reflective, where you sit back and step back. It's like, what's the big picture? What's the big picture? What is it ultimately we want to accomplish? But also when you're looking at that big picture, it's like, just because we're not at the end point, the ultimate vision, doesn't mean we're not successful. So it's keeping that overall perspective, linking it to your vision, but also celebrating the local successes, of small successes. So some of the skills are also looking at options, balancing various points of view, trying to get alternative points of view, trying to get the naysayers' points of views, or trying to see things from another person's perspective, because that's what will help him or her move forward. Being organized, getting good information, science-based, evidence-based practices is vital. Good grounding, good theory, looking at other fields of study. We're in alcohol and other drug abuse prevention, but what can we learn from business, or what can we learn from some recreation programs that they tried that with such and such. Maybe that would work for this. I was in a project years ago, and I've done a lot with high school and young adult peer influence, peers reaching peers. I did a high school program years ago where the high school youth were trained to reach out to middle school youth. Colleges have a lot of peer education. Well, I was in a project years ago, and we adapted that process for 80-year-olds reaching out to 70-year-olds. We reached out for bilingual people reaching out to those who were not bilingual and did not speak English so they could get more acculturated. A lot of cultural sensitivity, but adapting a lot of the principles of peers helping peers. So again, looking outside your own traditional borders, I think is part of a good leader. Looking at various points of view. And then the last thing I would offer in terms of some skills is helping to manage the boundaries. To me, a good leader, it's like keeping that perspective. And managing the boundaries means, well, if let's say you're doing some good work in a community and another group says, hey, you're doing good work, would you take this on? Well, do you have the resources? Do you have the capability? Do you have the expertise? Do you have the desire to do that? And if you take that on, might it divert your core mission? But the other piece of it is with your own coalition or the group that you're working with, helping to expand the boundaries as you choose to do that. So you might then reach out to another coalition on a different topic and try to join forces. They have to manage their boundaries, you manage yours. So it's like a balloon. You're trying to expand it without popping it. But you also want to have it blown up rather than just have no air in it. So again, managing the boundaries, expanding and protecting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. I would say wonderful list of skills. And I could see a lot of overlap with those skills and style about engaging and, building that trust, looking, those different points of view, empathy. Absolutely. And listening. But I wanted to just sort of shift just a little bit. This week, we actually had our advanced prevention ethics and then in prevention ethics TOT. And it was really interesting, the dialogue we had around ethics and just leadership and being a good leader. What thoughts do you have on that topic?
Well, I think that's one of those topics that is often not talked about. And I am thrilled to hear that you had some coverage and some sessions on that. One of the fields of study that I did in my graduate work, which was like 35, 40 years ago, was ethics. And one of the elements that we studied was one of the books that was a go-to book for us was called Ethics for Bureaucrats. But ethics for all of us, different fields of study, whether it's doctors or nurses or social workers or public administrators, have codes of ethics or standards or whatever they call that. But there's different guidelines in that sense, formalized. So, but it's almost thinking about ethics when you're doing research. You talk about human subjects and protection for people that you might be doing research with and on and about. So ethics is core, and we'll cover a little bit of that when we do the training in the end of September. But always thinking ethics, and people will disagree on that. But at least if we're conscious with ethics and conscious in talking about it, it'll help us make better and sounder decisions rather than just moving forward too quickly. So I think with that, and I think that dovetails into a theme of, all of our leadership qualities can be enhanced. You had that session recently. Hopefully that can grow and that can multiply more widely. So we always keep the high road of good ethics. I don't think ethics paralyzes us. I think it frees us when we say, this is really the right thing to do. And then we make those arguments. But constantly training and all these qualities, I think, can be helpful and learning how to plan better and engage and facilitate and learn.
Yes, indeed. And I love that you mentioned they can be enhanced. And you and I have actually talked offline about this, but the importance of just peer sharing, mentoring, and just having conversations with colleagues around these topics outside of training even. There's so much value in that.
And so the issue with mentoring is both ways. We each find mentors and we can be mentors. So thank you for raising that. Both are important.
Absolutely.
That's being a leader.
We've chatted a lot about the importance of a mentor too. But I want to sort of skip ahead because over the years, through our conversations, we both have talked a lot about sort of leadership and legacy. I'm curious, how do you see these two fitting together or complementing each other?
Yeah. So let me just, a quick story is when I would teach undergraduate classes, college students on a class on drugs and alcohol, drugs and health, I would say, I start with some questions, start the course with questions like, what do you remember about a grandparent? And so some qualities will come up. It's like, interesting. So, fast forward to your own life and, someday, hopefully you'll be old. I mean, hopefully you make it to be a grandparent or just an older scholar, an older citizen in our culture, an older resident, a community contributor. And then what are people going to say about you? What are they going to say about you? And if you think about your own grandparent, what you're saying about him or her is that what they would like to have said about them. And when you think about people 50 years, younger than you, are you going to like what they say about you? And so the point about legacy is you're going to have a legacy, but is it the legacy you want? And you are more likely to achieve your desired legacy if you're more intentional about it. If you think about, here's what I want people to think about me, and here's what I want to be known for. Not my childhood antics or my smart aleck style, but my contributions or my being a good family member or being a good community member. And then the question I would ask in the class is, how do your decisions today about alcohol and other drugs help you to achieve the legacy that you say you want to have? And how do your decisions about alcohol and other drugs get in the way? So in terms of leadership, being intentional, you think about the guiding principles that I mentioned earlier. Being more intentional about where we want to go and how are we going to get there. And is this what's good for our community at this point in time that's going to achieve the longer term, if you will, community legacy? I'm in a community now where we're about 25 years old and we're envisioning our next 25 years and we're trying to be more intentional about how do we want to be known? And do we want to be known as an arts community, a recreation community? Certainly we want all those things, but what do we want to be known for outside our borders? So again, leadership, helping to guide those discussions. It doesn't mean control. It means guide, facilitate, inform the discussions, looking at pieces from other similar groups or not similar groups and saying, what do we want and what do we not want? And again, thinking about those guiding principles, being locally appropriate, being grounded, sharing the responsibilities, I think is really important. It's not just one person saying, follow me, this is the way to go. It's shared leadership. It's all of us together. We're stronger when we're together. Of course, the old saying, it takes a village. And then being creative, being innovative. That's how we make progress. That's how we are a different society today than we were 10 years ago and 50 years ago. And if we're more intentional, more planful, more creative, more engaging, more respectful and in our society, we can really address alcohol and other drugs and so much more about healthy living, safe living. But that's how legacy and leadership fit together. We can help promote the desired legacy, promote it. Doesn't mean we're going to automatically get there, but we're more likely to get there if we're more intentional about it. I hope that helps and answers your question.
Absolutely. Live intentional, work intentional, be good and do good.
Very good.
As we're nearing the end of this episode, what would be a couple final takeaways for the audience?
Well, I'm going to end where I started. Whatever your role, formal or informal, every single person has the opportunity to be a leader. Every single person. Whether you're inside a structure or outside the structure, on a board, not on a board, everyone can be a leader. Another thing is speak up. Find your own skill set. Find the area. And if you have a hard time speaking up, find a way that your voice can be heard. It may be through a written letter. It may be nudging someone else or asking them to call on you or to share the point of view that you have. So share the expertise in the ways that are comfortable for you, but also be willing to stretch. Try on a new pair of shoes. They feel uncomfortable initially, but try in a safe place, and then you get bigger and bigger. I mean, try in your own community setting, then you might want to speak up at a state legislative forum or maybe eventually national. Find a place, speak your voice, and extend and expand. The bottom line, it's all about success, its impact, its results, its engagement. It's about accountability. If we're not sharing our voice, because those of us who are working in alcohol or other drugs have a lot of interest and we're learning and learning more. If we're not having our voice out there, then the alternative is silence, or the alternative is misinformation, misdirection. So if we're not engaged as leaders, again, whether formal or informal, that's a void, and that's a missed opportunity. And I fully believe in harnessing the passion of so much of the wisdom, so much of the heart and soul that makes up this country and makes up our communities. And you know, we can do better and we can do more. And I guess let me just close with something like, you know, at the end of a movie, you often see the slide or the thing that says at the end. Well, you know, I would just say, you know, put the word "not" in front of that. It's not the end. We're continuing to grow, continuing to learn, continuing to be better leaders, and that's what helps make our communities and our states and our nations even better.
Absolutely. Be intentional and continue to learn and work on the outside of your circle of influence to always be expanding and growing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. And also, I would say be intentional about supporting your leaders too. Help them be a better leader. Help each other. We're all on the same team.
Absolutely.
Marvelous. So much great value here. And thank you so much again for taking time to come on the podcast. And I'm really looking forward to September 26th. So those listening, be sure to register while space is still available. All right. Thank you again,
and I would
David.
say one last thing, if I may. Yeah, just put in a website. If someone can't come to the training, or they're hearing this across the country and it's not convenient, a lot of my resources are available free. It's my university website at www.caph, Center for the Advancement of Public Health, .gmu.edu, caph.gmu.edu. And I know you'll have that available on your podcast notes. So
absolutely.
Again, onward and upward. Thank you.
Yes. All right. And those will be in the show notes, everyone. And yes, thank you again, David. And I hope you have a wonderful day.
My pleasure. Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.